The negotiation chamber on the Auxiliar mothership was cold and unwelcoming. Captain Aaron Blake adjusted his tie and glanced at his team. They looked tense, their faces pale under the sharp alien lights. The Auxiliar were a brutal species, their society built on violence and fear. The slightest mistake in tone or words could trigger a war. Blake, however, stood calm, his expression neutral, polite even. The Auxiliar respected strength, but their leader, General Krylos, had never faced someone like Blake, a man whose greatest weapon wasn't brute force, but his unshakable politeness. As Krylos entered the chamber, his towering figure cast a shadow over the humans. His black armor gleamed under the light, and his four crimson eyes locked onto Blake. Krylos sneered, his sharp teeth glinting. "So, the humans send their weakest to negotiate peace," he growled, his voice echoing like thunder. Blake smiled faintly. "Thank you for meeting us, General Krylos. It's an honor to speak with a leader as renowned as yourself." The Auxiliar warriors snorted in laughter. To them, Blake's calm demeanor was a sign of weakness. Humans, they thought, were too soft, too polite to survive in a galaxy ruled by warlike species. But Blake wasn't here to survive. He was here to win. The polite game negotiations began, and Blake played his part perfectly. While Krylos barked demands, Blake listened patiently, nodding occasionally. He responded with polite, measured words, careful not to show any sign of fear or aggression. "Humans are no threat to you," Blake said smoothly. "We seek only cooperation and peace." Krylos laughed, a deep, guttural sound that echoed in the chamber. "Cooperation? Peace? Your kind is weak. You don't belong in this galaxy of strength." Blake's smile didn't waver. "Strength comes in many forms, General. For instance, the strength to listen before acting." Krylos narrowed his eyes. He wasn't sure if Blake was mocking him, but something about the human's calm demeanor unsettled him. The Auxiliar were used to enemies who shouted threats or begged for mercy. But this human, he was different. Meanwhile, Blake's team quietly worked behind the scenes. Hidden devices had already been planted around the mothership, their signals masked by the humans' seemingly harmless equipment. Blake's politeness wasn't just a shield, it was a distraction. A test of strength. Krylos, growing impatient, leaned forward. "Perhaps you need a demonstration of Auxiliar strength." "A challenge, human. Let's see how your kind fares in combat." Blake tilted his head slightly, as if considering the offer. His voice remained calm. "A challenge? That sounds fair. But I'm afraid my strength lies in strategy, not combat. Wouldn't a game of wits be a better test?" The Auxiliar warriors exchanged confused glances. A game of wits? Such a suggestion was unheard of in their culture. Krylos, however, smirked. He believed himself to be a master tactician. "Very well, human. We will play your little game. But if you lose, your people will leave this galaxy forever." Blake nodded politely. "And if I win?" Krylos laughed again. "If you win, human, you may leave alive. That is all you will get." Blake smiled. "Agreed." Krylos chose his best warriors to advise him, while Blake calmly instructed his team. As the hours passed, the Auxiliar became increasingly frustrated. Blake's strategies were unconventional, unpredictable. He used clever diversions and fake retreats, trapping Krylos's forces in unwinnable positions. Every move seemed polite, almost humble, but the results were devastating. How is this possible? Krylos growled, slamming his fist on the table. Blake offered a faint smile. "Perhaps you underestimated us, General." Krylos's temper flared, but he couldn't deny the outcome. The human had won, and not through brute force, but through sheer intelligence. Yet Krylos wasn't ready to concede. "You may have won this game, human, but you won't survive the next." Blake's smile widened, just slightly. "General Krylos, I believe it's your turn to listen." At that moment, a signal was sent from Blake's wrist communicator. All around the Auxiliar mothership, hidden devices activated. The lights flickered, and the sound of alarms filled the air. Blake's team had hacked into the ship's systems. The final move. Krylos rose to his feet, fury in his eyes. "What have you done?" Blake remained seated, calm as ever. As I said, strength comes in many forms. While we negotiated, my team ensured we had insurance. The Exeler warriors drew their weapons, but Krylos raised a hand to stop them. He knew the humans had outmaneuvered him. One wrong move, and his entire ship would be destroyed. You planned this from the start, Krylos said, his voice low and dangerous. Blake stood, adjusting his tie. We came in peace, General. But we're always prepared for war. The room fell silent. Krylos stared at the human, his mind racing. Finally, he spoke. You win this time, human. But know this, your kind will never be trusted. Blake nodded politely. Trust is earned, General. Perhaps someday we'll earn yours. Resolution as Blake and his team left the Exeler ship. He glanced back once, his expression unreadable. The Exeler had learned a valuable lesson: never underestimate humanity. Their politeness wasn't weakness, it was a weapon, as sharp and deadly as any blade. Back on his own ship, Blake reviewed the mission report. Well done, everyone, he said with a faint smile. Sometimes, the deadliest move is the one they never see coming. And with that, the humans had secured not only peace, but a reputation that would echo across the galaxy. The Grand Palace of Zorith stood at the center of the galaxy's most feared empire. Its walls were made of dark, pulsating crystal, and alien guards with 6 glowing eyes and razor-sharp weapons patrolled every corridor. The palace was said to be impenetrable. No enemy had ever survived a direct approach. But Evelyn Cross was no ordinary enemy. She stepped out of the sleek transport ship, her black cloak flowing behind her. Her expression was calm, her posture confident, yet non-threatening. She carried no visible weapons. To the guards waiting at the entrance, she looked harmless, a human, soft and polite. Barely worth their attention, as they scanned her with their advanced equipment. Evelyn smiled warmly. Thank you for taking the time to ensure everyone's safety. You're doing an excellent job. The guards glanced at each other, confused. Politeness was rare in the galaxy, especially among assassins. One guard growled, "Keep moving, human. Don't waste our time." Evelyn nodded politely and walked through the gates. She could feel the tension in the air. Every step brought her closer to her target, the ruthless overlord, Darek Vol. Known for enslaving entire planets, Darek had built his empire by crushing any resistance. He trusted no one and surrounded himself with deadly warriors and traps. But he had made one mistake. He had underestimated the humans. The Planovelin entered the main hall, where hundreds of Darek's guests were gathered for a grand banquet. They were a mix of powerful alien leaders and mercenaries, all loyal to Darek. The air smelled of exotic spices and burning metal. She moved gracefully through the crowd, nodding politely to everyone who looked her way. Her manners and calm demeanor set her apart in a room filled with aggression and arrogance. No one suspected her true purpose. Evelyn's target sat on a raised throne at the end of the hall. Darek Vol was a massive figure, his crimson armor gleaming under the lights. His sharp, reptilian features twisted into a smug grin as he watched the crowd. A servant approached her with a tray of drinks. Evelyn took a glass and smiled. "Thank you, that's very kind." As she sipped the drink, she observed the room carefully. Every detail mattered: the positioning of the guards, the exits, and the security systems. Her mission was clear: eliminate Darek without being detected. Evelyn's first step was to create a distraction. She noticed a group of mercenaries arguing near the center of the hall. Their voices were growing louder, drawing attention. Evelyn walked over, her polite tone cutting through the tension. "Excuse me, gentlemen," she said, her voice calm and pleasant. "I couldn't help but overhear. Perhaps I can help resolve your disagreement?" The mercenaries looked at her, startled. They weren't used to such courtesy, especially in a place like this. One of them muttered, "Mind your business, human." Evelyn simply smiled. "Of course. My apologies." She stepped back, but not before slipping a small device onto the table between them. Moments later, the device activated, emitting a low-frequency pulse that scrambled the palace's security sensors. The guards didn't notice the disruption, but Evelyn knew it had given her the opening she needed. The confrontation Evelyn made her way toward the throne. As she approached, one of Derek's bodyguards stepped in front of her, blocking her path. He was twice her size, his armor bristling with weapons. "No closer," he growled. Evelyn stopped and raised her hands in a gesture of peace. "I mean, no harm. I simply wish to offer my respect to your leader." The bodyguard hesitated. Her calm demeanor and polite tone disarmed him. Before he could respond, Derek's voice boomed across the hall. "Let her through." The bodyguard stepped aside, and Evelyn walked up to the throne. She bowed slightly, her expression humble. "Thank you for granting me this audience, Lord Derek. It's an honor to meet someone of your stature." Derek leaned forward, studying her with his piercing yellow eyes. "A polite human. How unusual." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Politeness is a strength, my lord. It opens doors that brute force cannot." Derek chuckled, his deep voice echoing in the hall. "You speak well, human. But I don't trust words. Why are you here?" Evelyn met his gaze, her voice steady. "To prove that even the smallest actions can have the greatest consequences." Before Derek could react, Evelyn pressed a hidden button on her bracelet. A tiny, nearly invisible dart shot out, striking Derek in the neck. His eyes widened in shock as he slumped back in his throne. The room erupted into chaos. Guards rushed toward the throne, shouting orders. But Evelyn was already moving. She slipped into the shadows, her cloak blending into the dim lighting. The security systems were still down, thanks to the device she had planted earlier. As the guards searched for her, Evelyn calmly made her way to the exit. Along the way, she nodded politely to a confused servant. "Thank you for your hospitality. I'll be leaving now." By the time the guards realized what had happened, Evelyn was gone. The legend of the polite assassin back on her ship, Evelyn removed her cloak and sank into the pilot's chair. The mission was a success. Derek Vole was dead, and his empire would soon crumble without his leadership. As she plotted her course, a message came through from her handler. "Was it difficult?" Evelyn smiled. "Not at all. It's amazing what you can achieve with a little politeness." And so, the legend of the polite assassin began to spread across the galaxy. A human who killed with precision and grace, leaving behind nothing but questions and fear. To many, politeness would never feel harmless again. The Galactic Council chamber was vast and intimidating, with towering pillars of silver and light casting long shadows on the marble floor. Delegates from dozens of alien species sat in their designated pods, floating high above the central stage. Each delegate represented a powerful race. Some feared for their strength, others respected for their technology. At the heart of the chamber stood a single human, Ambassador Clara Hayes. She was unarmed, dressed simply in a dark suit, her hands resting calmly at her sides. To the council, she appeared small, insignificant even, compared to the massive, multi-limbed or armored creatures surrounding her. The debate had been raging for hours. The Galactic Union was deciding whether to allow humanity a place among the stars or to crush their fledgling colonies before they became a threat. Many races argued against the humans. They called them weak, naive, and unfit to survive in a galaxy that rewarded power and cunning. Yet Clara remained composed, her expression calm, her tone polite. "Honored council members," she said, her voice steady but carrying across the chamber, "I understand your concerns. Humanity is new to this galaxy. We lack your advanced weapons, your vast fleets, but I ask you to reconsider. Strength is not the only measure of worth." Her words were met with scoffs and murmurs of disapproval. One of the delegates, a hulking figure from the warlike Torgal species, leaned forward in his pod. "Enough of this nonsense. Your kind is too soft. You come here speaking of peace, but peace is a lie. Only the strong deserve to survive." Clara looked up at him, her gaze steady. "And yet, Delegate Krov, it takes strength to hold back when you could easily strike. It takes strength to listen, to understand, to cooperate." The chamber fell silent for a moment. The Torgal delegate bared his fangs but said nothing. Claire continued, her tone unchanging. "The test of humanity for anyone could respond, The lights in the chamber dimmed. A low mechanical voice echoed through the room. "It is time for the trial." Clara straightened. She had prepared for this moment, though she wasn't entirely sure what to expect. The Galactic Union had a tradition. Any new species seeking membership had to pass a trial designed to test their worth. The nature of the trial was always a closely guarded secret, designed to target a species' greatest weaknesses. The floor beneath Clara shifted, and she found herself standing alone in a smaller, circular room. Holographic panels lit up around her, displaying the faces of the council members as they observed her every move. A calm but chilling voice spoke. "The test is simple, human. You must negotiate peace with a simulated enemy. They will not trust you. They will not respect you. Fail, and your species will never be permitted to join this council." Clara nodded, her expression betraying no fear. Understood. It was a representation of the Virak, a brutal and merciless race that had once terrorized the galaxy. The figure loomed over Clara, its insectoid body glistening, its claws twitching as it hissed. "Human!" it snarled. "Why should I listen to you? Your kind is weak. Your words are meaningless." Clara took a deep breath. "Thank you for speaking with me," she said calmly. "I understand that you have no reason to trust me, but I hope we can find common ground." The Virak laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Common ground? Your kind has nothing to offer. You are beneath us." Clara didn't flinch. "Perhaps you're right. Compared to your strength, we are small. But isn't it the role of the strong to protect the weak? To show leadership and wisdom, not just power?" The Virak hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing. "You speak in circles, human. Do you think your politeness will save you?" Clara tilted her head slightly. "Politeness is not weakness. It's a tool, like any other. It allows us to build bridges instead of walls, to create allies instead of enemies. Tell me, Virak, what do you truly want?" The creature hissed again, but this time there was uncertainty in its posture. "We want respect. Fear. To be recognized as the rulers of this galaxy." Clara nodded. "And fear may bring obedience, but it doesn't bring loyalty. True respect is earned through understanding and cooperation. Let me show you another way." A tense negotiation simulation grew more challenging. The Virak began to test her patience, hurling insults and making impossible demands. Yet Clara never raised her voice, never lost her composure. She listened carefully, responding with measured words. As the minutes turned to hours, the Virak's hostility began to waver. It was subtle at first, a slight softening of its tone, a moment of hesitation before its next threat. Clara seized these moments, offering solutions that appealed to both logic and emotion. "You don't need to lose anything to gain respect," she said at one point. "Strength is not diminished by kindness. It is enhanced by it." Victory through politeness. Finally, the Virak fell silent. It stared at Clara for a long moment before speaking. "You are different from the others we've faced. Perhaps your kind is not as weak as we thought." The holographic figure disappeared, and the lights in the chamber brightened. Clara found herself back in the central council hall. The delegates were watching her, their expressions unreadable. The mechanical voice returned. "The human has passed the trial. The vote will now commence." One by one, the delegates cast their votes. Clara stood silently, her heart pounding. When the final vote was tallied, the voice announced, "Humanity is hereby granted membership in the Galactic Union." The aftermath. As Clara left the chamber, she allowed herself a small smile. Humanity's place among the stars was secured, not through war or intimidation, but through the quiet, unyielding power of politeness. Back on her ship, she reflected on the trial. It wasn't just a test of negotiation, it was a test of humanity's greatest strength, the ability to find hope even in the face of hostility. Because in the end, politeness wasn't just a tool. It was power. The crowd was loud, buzzing with excitement and anticipation. The arena stretched far and wide, filled with rows of spectators from across the galaxy. Alien beings, humanoid and non-humanoid, sat in pods that hovered above the battlefield, their eyes fixed on the center of the arena where the upcoming match would take place. No one expected it to be anything special. After all, the annual tournament of the Forgotten wasn't about heroes, it was about survival. The best fighters in the galaxy competed here, warriors who fought to the death for fame and fortune. But this year was different. This year, a human was about to step into the ring. Claire Hayes was only 5'6" with dark hair and a soft expression. She stood out not because of her size or strength. Humans were no match for the massive alien warriors who usually dominated this arena, but because of her smile. A calm, kind smile, the kind of smile that didn't belong in a place like this. The announcer's voice boomed across the stadium, announcing her name with mockery. And now, the human. Claire Hayes, the so-called smiling assassin, is about to face her first challenger. The crowd erupted in laughter and boos. Clara didn't flinch. She stepped forward, her hands tucked neatly behind her back, her smile never wavering. The arena seemed to grow colder, more dangerous as the crowd's jeers echoed around her. The first challenger, her first opponent, was a massive Gornath, a species known for its brutal strength and nearly impenetrable armor. The Gornath warrior, Kor, stood well over 7 feet tall. His muscular arms rippled with power, and his claws, sharp as blades, scraped against the floor as he paced. His eyes locked onto Clara with disdain. "Are you sure you want to do this, human?" Kor's voice rumbled, shaking the air. "You are outmatched. I could tear you apart with a single blow." Clara's smile didn't falter. "I don't mind. Thank you for the chance to fight you." The crowd fell silent, sensing something was different about this human. Clara didn't seem afraid. The bell rang, signaling the start of the match. The fight began. Skor rushed forward, his claws extended, aimed straight at Clara's chest. The crowd cheered, expecting her to be crushed within seconds. But Clara was fast. She ducked under Kor's claws with ease, her movements smooth and fluid. She didn't make any attempt to retaliate. Instead, she danced around him, her smile never leaving her face. "Is that all you've got?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with an undeniable confidence. Aaron tilted his head slightly, his smile softening. "I understand your anger, Captain. The incident with your shipment was regrettable. I came here to resolve it peacefully. I believe violence benefits no one." Shrake laughed, a deep, guttural sound that echoed down the corridor. "You think I care about peace? I care about power, and right now, I hold all of it. You are alone, surrounded by my crew, with no weapons and no chance of survival." Aaron nodded gently. "You're right. On the surface, the odds are against me. But appearances can be deceiving, don't you think?" Shrock's eyes narrowed. There was something unsettling about this human. The tension recessed. Shrock motioned to one of his guards, a brutish alien with tusks and heavy armor. "Take him to the holding cell. Perhaps he'll be more talkative after some persuasion." The guard stepped forward, towering over Aaron. The envoy didn't flinch. Instead, he turned to the guard with a polite nod. "Good evening. I hope you're doing well. That armor looks quite heavy. Must be difficult to move in." The guard hesitated, glancing at Shrock, confused by Aaron's calm demeanor. "Don't listen to him." Shrake snapped. "Move." The guard reached out, but before his hand could touch Aaron, the human took a small step back. It was subtle, almost unnoticeable, but perfectly timed. The guard overbalanced slightly, just enough for Aaron to act. With a speed that caught even Shrock off guard, Aaron twisted the guard's arm, applying pressure to a joint. The alien dropped to his knees with a pained grunt. Aaron stepped back, still smiling, and dusted off his sleeve. "My apologies," Aaron said, his voice calm. "I dislike resorting to physical measures, but I believe it was necessary to demonstrate that I'm not entirely helpless." Shrock's jaw tightened. "A lucky move. It won't happen again." Aaron nodded politely. "Perhaps. But why take the risk, Captain? Let's talk instead." A deadly conversation's Shrock led Aaron to his private quarters, a dimly lit room filled with stolen treasures and weapons. The pirate captain sat behind a massive desk, gesturing for Aaron to sit across from him. You have 2 minutes to convince me not to kill you, Shrek growled. Aaron sat down gracefully, folding his hands on the desk. Thank you for the opportunity, Captain. I appreciate your willingness to listen. Shrek snorted but said nothing. You see, Aaron continued, I understand your frustration. Your shipment was intercepted, and you see humanity as the culprit. But we are not the ones who stole from you. In fact, we have evidence that suggests the culprits were the Exarch Syndicate, your rivals, if I'm not mistaken. Shrek's eyes flickered with interest. The Exarchs? Why should I believe you? Aaron reached into his jacket pocket slowly, pulling out a small data chip. This contains intercepted communications between Xeric's operatives. They planned the heist and framed humanity to divert your wrath. Shrek leaned forward, his claws tapping against the desk. If this is true, why bring it to me? Why not use it to save your own skin? Aaron's smile softened. Because, Captain, I believe in cooperation over conflict. If humanity can prove its loyalty to you, perhaps we can become allies. And allies are far more valuable than enemies. The captain's dilemma's Shrek stared at Aaron, his mind racing. The human was calm, almost unnervingly so. He exuded confidence, not arrogance, and his words carried a weight that was hard to ignore. You're clever, human, Shrek admitted, but cleverness only goes so far. If I accept this data and it's false, you and your kind will pay dearly. Aaron nodded, unperturbed. I understand. But consider this, what do you gain by killing me? A brief satisfaction, perhaps, but nothing of lasting value. However, if you trust me, you gain an ally who can provide information, resources, and assistance against your true enemies. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Shrek reached out and took the data chip, inserting it into a console on his desk. The holographic display lit up, showing the intercepted Xeric's communications. As Shrek reviewed the evidence, his expression darkened. It seems you were telling the truth, he said grudgingly. Aaron gave a small bow of his head. I'm glad to hear that, Captain. Polite but lethal, Shrek leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on Aaron. You're an unusual human, Quinn. Most would have begged or panicked in your position. But you kept your composure. Why? Aaron's smile grew faintly sharper, though his tone remained polite. Because panic doesn't solve problems, Captain. Neither does brute force. Sometimes, all it takes is a calm mind and a little persuasion. Shrek chuckled, a low rumbling sound. You remind me of a snake, human. Polite on the surface, but deadly underneath. Aaron rose from his chair, giving a slight bow. I take that as a compliment, Captain. I look forward to working with you. As Aaron left the room, Shrek couldn't shake the feeling that he had just faced a predator in disguise.